Hello, hello.
How are you?
Good, good. We've been on Zoom most of the day, so I'm excited for this fun part of our day.
Yes, we've been looking forward to it all day. So I'm
We
excited.
have,
This is such a hot topic. So I think that's what gets me most excited because we have so many people that are asking us about this right now. So I think
yeah,
it's going to be really beneficial for people.
yes. So our listeners have no idea the treat that they're about to have hearing from you, but I am excited to take the position of an interviewer this episode of our expert in all things influencer marketing. So Taleesa has, for those of you that don't know, she's built an Instagram following in 1 year, actually, I will say, to over 12,000 followers at the point of this recording. And then a TikTok following of over 20 something thousand,
Yeah,
23,000, 20.
23.
Okay, 23,000
Yeah.
followers. She's done multiple brand partnerships herself. So, brands like Crockpot, Pesty, lots of brands that we've heard of. Cozy Earth is one that I use quite often, actually. So, she's done a lot of brand partnerships herself. And then on top of that, has really like led the charge for all of our done for you clients video content and just has a lot of experience in this. So I'm really looking forward to interviewing you, Taleesa, on all things influencer marketing. It is a super hot topic. We get texted, I would say, at least twice a week from clients about either is this person a good fit to partner with? How do I get started with influencer marketing? What should I know about it? What types of things make it a fair trade? All sorts of questions. And so we're going to cover all of those in my interview.
I'm so excited. I definitely have a lot of opinions on this. So I'm so excited.
Great. Okay, so why don't you kick us off with the very most basic of questions? What is an influencer?
Okay, this is a great question. So an influencer is someone that has a presence on social media and has built some kind of audience. And I think sometimes people get confused, like, oh, they need to have, 10,000 followers to be considered an influencer. Or I think sometimes we focus on the vanity metrics, but honestly, in my opinion, the most important thing that makes a good influencer and what is an influencer is just someone who has influence. That's what that means. So if you have an engaged community online, you're an influencer, in my opinion.
That's great. Okay, so how would you find an influencer? Like, how do you go about finding one as a brick and mortar business?
So this can be a little bit tricky for people because I would say everyone has very different, I would say, amounts of influencers or um, percentage of people that would be a good influencer in their area. If you're living in New York City or LA, oh my gosh, the possibilities are endless. If you're living in a really small town community, it's just going to be hard. So I would say a few things that you need to do is search local hashtags
Mm,
because I would say one of the most important thing when finding an influencer is making sure that if you're a brick and mortar business, you need to have someone that's local to you and that's known for being local to you for 90% of cases, I would say. And so I would start by searching local hashtags on Instagram and TikTok. So like insert your city life. So, I'm in Pennsylvania. So I might say Hershey life or Hershey, Pennsylvania or chocolate world or just like things like I know there's a lot of things that are close to me that where would an influencer be? What would an influencer be promoting next to you? Start with those hashtags. I feel like that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give is try to utilize local hashtags and just see what pops up. You're going to have options, I promise.
that's great. Thank you. Okay, so once you have found a couple of influencers to choose from, then how would you decide which influencer is a good choice for your business?
Okay, so the answer to that is there's multiple influencers that probably would be good fits for your business, but there's a few things that I would check when working with an influencer. So let's say you have a lineup of influencers and you're trying to decide, okay, who do I want representing my company? That's one of the biggest things you need to look at. Who do you want representing your company? Because, you know, influencers can be influencers for multiple reasons. And what's a reason that makes you comfortable? I mean, if they're a face of your business, what kind of values do they have? Are they in alignment with your business? Are you comfortable with the kinds of content that they're already promoting? That's a big one. I would say make sure that the influencer is in alignment with your business and your goals. The next thing I would look out for is engagement. So for me, and I will say this until the cows come home, like something that I feel very passionate about is the vanity metrics don't matter as much as the engagement metrics. And so as you're looking at an influencer, I would take a million times over for a med spa, I would take an influencer who has 5,000 followers with a very engaged community that's known locally. So a big tip is find your pageant queens because they are known to be local. If you're working with, you know, Miss Pennsylvania, people are supporting her because they're in Pennsylvania for the most part. You know, of course they're going to have outside followers, but for the most part, people are rallying for them, right? And so they're going to have support locally. So, you know, if you find someone like that has a few thousand followers and a very engaged community, I would take that over an influencer that has 100,000 followers that is not known locally for you. Because the fact of the matter is you want people walking in your doors, right? Name recognition doesn't mean anything if it doesn't actually bring an ROI for you. ROI is what we're looking for, right? So brand recognition, you don't care if someone knows who you are. If you're in New York, you don't really care what someone in Mississippi thinks about your business.
No.
If we're just being honest, if you're really trying to grow your business and grow your ROI, you want to make sure you are bringing on people that when they're shouting your business from the rooftops, it's actually people who could support your business. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. It's not that you can't work with an influencer that has 100,000 followers, but the strategy behind that would be completely different versus a local influencer. So I would say, again, look for engagement, make sure that they're local. You can ask for metrics from influencers. If there's someone that you know, and you know that you really want to work with them, you can say, hey, I'm really interested in working with you as an influencer for my brand. Is there any way I could see what your top local cities are or what your engagement rate is? Those are things you can ask people. Of course, do it in a nice, kind way. But if you're really in the process of working with an influencer, those are fair things to ask. And they're important things to ask because an engaged community is much better than a large community. And I will say that every time.
Perfect. So one of the things you touched on in the beginning of your answer was around values. And it made me think of things that if we were to have an influencer that promoted our business as an example, which is crazy, but if we did, I would avoid someone that had a lot of like sexual connotation on their page, which seems to be a lot of large influencers. I'm just going to say, someone that had a lot of cussing on their page isn't really in alignment with us as an example. Someone that promoted other agencies, I would say that's just kind of weird, you know? So, yeah, I was just kind of thinking through like what would work for us if we were to do that. But, yeah, that's really helpful. So then what types of things would you suggest businesses have influencers promote for them?
Okay, so that's a great question. And it is completely dependent on the influencer, which is probably hard to hear right now. And I'm not trying to be vague, but I'm going to give you a couple examples. So there's some reference here. So I'm just going to take the example of, let's say you found a really popular pageant queen that lived in your area that was local to you. Something that I would highly recommend is asking them to be transparent and open about the services that they are coming in and getting from your business. People are nosy. People are so nosy and they want to be in everyone's business. Let's just be honest. Why are reality TV shows popular? Because we want to be in people's business.
Yeah.
We don't want to be a part of the drama, but we like watching the drama sometimes.
Right.
Right? So people are nosy in general. And if they knew, like, oh my goodness, I want to know what Miss Mississippi gets before she competes. I want to know, what does she get? Talks? Does she get filler? Like, what does she get?
Yeah.
People are going to be nosy and people are going to be engaged with that kind of content. So I would say something I would highly suggest, if you were to take an influencer like that, have them walk through all the treatments that they're going to do to feel their best for their pageant. That is like a really good one that I would suggest. And you know your business best. So the deliverables, you're going to have to work out with them, what they're comfortable with, what you're comfortable with. But I would definitely make sure to protect yourself. Don't be giving away too much, not too much. You definitely want to be giving them a good deal as well, because you are renting their space that they've built with their blood, sweat, and tears. They've built that audience. They deserve to have something in return for sure, but it needs to have homeostasis. It needs to feel good on both ends. So that is kind of up to you what you're willing to do. So, you know your business best, but I would say that it's just going to be important that you give them something awesome in return, but that's the kind of content I would ask for someone like that. Now, let's pretend hypothetically you did have an influencer that was local to you, but wasn't known locally. They had an audience from all over the country. I'm not saying you can't work with them. You totally could. But if I was working with someone that had, let's say, 100,000 followers on Instagram and an engaged audience, but they're just all over the country, my strategy with that influencer would be more so, let's really push medical grade skincare.
Mm-hmm.
Because people could buy medical grade skincare from you all over the country. So that would be in alignment of something that would be beneficial for you and your business. But I would have it very much so skincare focused. There's a reason why big influencers that you see on Instagram that are estheticians and have their own practices, you'll notice that most of what they promote on their own is skincare. And there's a reason for that. It's because they can benefit and get ROI from anyone in the country when they're talking about skincare, but only people local to them are going to be able to go get lasers or, hydrofacial or different treatments done. And that's why they'll touch on those subjects, but they don't focus on them. And you'll notice a lot of the big names, that's why they focus on skincare. And it's very strategic and smart. So if you're borrowing someone's real estate, I'm going to call it real estate. If you're borrowing their audience and they have a nationwide audience, I would highly recommend focusing more on skincare versus treatments.
So that is a great point, because I know someone that we adore so much is a really highly known esthetician on Instagram, and I have bought endless amounts of Skin Better Science myself just because of her. I'd probably buy an empty bottle of it because but anyway, so could you talk through like what type of strategy would you use if someone were to be creating a skincare video? Because I know we've seen a lot of these where someone's like, I'm using this, they put it on, and then they move on, I'm using this, and then they put it on. Like, what makes a successful product focused video?
I love this question because I'm not a very critical person in general, so I hope that doesn't come across this way, but I feel like I'm very critical of content like this because there has to be a purpose, right? You can't just be like, oh, because I'm pretty and like, here's just everything that I'm putting on my face and people are going to buy it. That's not how it's going to work, right? People need to know why they're putting that on their face and what it's going to do. So Get Ready With Me videos are phenomenal videos because you get to see the order of application.
Oh, okay.
People are very confused with skincare. And anyone listening to this is going to probably be nodding their heads like, yes, they probably deal with this with clients all the time. Like, what do I use first? And then what do I use? And then what do I use? People need to be told what to do. So Get Ready With Me style videos are so good. I would say an influencer that's telling a story rather than just like, here's this product, here's this product, here's this product. Like, be telling a funny story or an engaging story or something that was happening that day while they're getting ready. And then they're just kind of stopping and touching on the products, right? They're just saying, okay, and now I'm going to put on this really creamy cleanser. And it's been amazing because my skin does not feel stripped at all. And it's so hydrating. And then move on to this story again. So it's just kind of like touching points on the product. So it doesn't feel as ad-like, not as salesy, People don't love to be sold to a lot. People like to be told what to do a lot of times in marketing, but they don't want to be sold to all the time. And so by having a get ready with me style video where they're sharing a funny or an engaging story, but still touching on each product and what it's doing and the order that it's in, those are always really, really good videos to watch. Or have a before and after. What if you had a product that was really good for acne? Have the influencer have some really good shots showing their acne before, and then have like them do a walkthrough of the next month. Here's my 1 week check-in. Here's my 2 week check-in. Here's my 3 week check-in. This is what my skin looks like after a month. If you have products that you're really confident in that are going to get big results like that, I would also highly suggest that style of video. Those are really, really popular as well.
Yeah, I think one thing that always comes to my mind too when we're talking about selling on social is something you tell our team a lot is not to focus so much on the education, but to really come up with like a unique way of selling something. So instead of saying, this product is going to hydrate your skin, this product is going to take your skin from a croissant to a glazed donut.
Glazed donut. Yes. I agree with that completely because here's the thing. This is a really, really big strategy in marketing. And this is something that whether you're working with an influencer or for yourself, this is a really important concept. And so as you're talking with your influencer, you're going to want to talk about this. But people like to have tangible, transformational language. They don't like to just have, this is going to help with fine lines and wrinkles. Everyone and their mom is saying the same thing. Everyone, right? And people know if they have fine lines and wrinkles, but instead you want to use more like very descriptive language. And the key to sales and the key to marketing a lot of times is having people realize something about themselves that they've never admitted out loud, right? So instead of saying like, oh, this is going to help with your crow's feet, it's like, this is going to help any of you mamas out there that wake up day after day and wonder where in the heck did those dark circles come from that just randomly appeared. There are things that we want to pinpoint that, things that people don't openly talk about, but once they see that messaging, they're like, oh my gosh, that's me. Yeah. That's me. Right. It's not just like, oh, this will help with fine lines and wrinkles. It's like, great. That's language all over. But if you can pinpoint a particular struggle that someone's dealing with, then that's when it resonates with someone. So if it's acne or if it's fine lines or wrinkles, whatever it is, using descriptive language like that is going to be really key to not just influencer marketing, but your marketing in general.
Okay, so on my next long list of questions here, I have what makes a fair trade? Now, I want to call this item out specifically because we do have quite a few done for you clients in our agency and quite a few clients that have partnered with influencers or have interest in partnering with influencers that are med spas, plastic surgeons. We have had this conversation quite a few times, and we've seen clients give away a lot. And we've seen, so it's kind of disheartening sometimes when not a lot comes from it. So I think this is a great one because it's hard to put a monetary value on number of followers or number of views or, how that translates back to dollars. And so talk to us a little bit about what makes a fair trade.
I think what is key and critical when deciding what's a fair trade is first going into it with a short-term contract in mind, because you want to kind of test it out, test the waters and see how it goes before you really like jump in feet first, giving away thousands of dollars worth of stuff. I would not suggest that in the beginning. Maybe just start small. So maybe do a trade for one video and some stories, right? Okay. A video and some stories. And you got to be realistic with yourself. I would say never give away, especially with that first round with an influencer, never give anything away that would be higher than 3 new clients. So if the influencer was able to bring 3 new clients, what would that look like for you? I wouldn't do anything that exceeds that personally for your first round. So you're going to need to negotiate with the influencer, obviously, but that's what I would keep in mind. I would say once you've worked with them once and it goes mega successful and it's incredible and you got a lot of interest and a lot of people coming, then you renegotiate and then you can add more and you can have a long-term contract. But I would always suggest doing something small first to see how it goes and then do long-term negotiations from there. But that's what I would say. Never give anyone more than 3 clients worth, is I feel like is a kind of a good rule of thumb in the beginning, and then you could go from there.
I would think too that that one could be a little nuanced just depending on what the service could be. So if it's a plastic surgery office and they're going to want to partner with somebody for a breast augmentation, I wouldn't necessarily assume that they're going to get 3 clients out of that, just because, I mean, it depends, I suppose, on who the influencer is. You know, people will travel more for that, but I would say, you know, use your gut is something we say a lot in our business too,
Yeah.
but I think that's a great rule of thumb.
And something to consider is you need to give them tools to be successful. So, you know, if you want to have them do a skincare routine, you can't just trade for a cleanser and then be like, okay, do a whole video on your full skincare routine. So you got to use you got to use some common sense with that too. You know, you got to set them up for success. You want them to be successful. So if you want them to do a skincare routine, making sure they have everything they need to do that skincare routine would be helpful. So again, that's just kind of a basic rule of thumb, but I just think people need to be careful because oftentimes I see in the industry people getting taken advantage of on both sides. And I'll say it, both sides, because, you know, you cannot just give your influencer the bare minimum and also think that that's okay, in my opinion, because again, they've spent years building an audience, years of video after engagement after engagement. And that is prime real estate that you're borrowing. You're getting in front of an audience that you did not build yourself, right? So they deserve to be, you know, compensated for that, and their time and energy deserves to be compensated. So I've seen influencers they've been way taken advantage of. But then when you flip the coin, I see the reverse too, where an influencer is like, oh, because I have 100,000 followers or 200,000 or whatever amount of followers, you know, I need all of these services. And then the business doesn't even get anything back from it, which is so disheartening to see. And just something to keep in mind, why I also say engagement first, always engagement first, always, 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 is because people can even buy followers. So, you know, you don't want someone that's just buying a bunch of followers and then saying, okay, now I want all of these free services, and then nothing comes from it. So you just got to be careful. So I'd say engagement first, but there needs to be respect on both sides for sure.
Yeah, that's a really great segue into my next question, which was, how do I know I'm not going to get taken advantage of as a business owner?
Yes, that was a good little bridge there. Yeah, I would say making sure beforehand you really check them out and you do your research. You see their engagement, you know, being realistic about their engagement too. So, you know, if they have 5,000 followers, that doesn't mean they're going to get 5,000 comments on every single post or anything like that. But does it seem like it matches up? You know, does someone have 1 million followers and only 3 people are commenting and there's 20 likes? That does not match up, right? So you got to kind of ask yourself, does the engagement fit the account? And that's important. So engagement, I will always say engagement first, engagement first, engagement first. So if they have a very engaged audience, that's a really, really good sign. I would also say having contracts in place, even if they're your best friend, have a contract in place, because I have seen very bad business deals and relationships hurt. And I've just seen it in this industry, and I don't want it happening to you if you're listening to this call. So even if it's your best friend, you make sure there's a contract in place that says what you're expecting from them and what they can expect from you. And it can be very simple. It can be a simple contract, but have a contract in place too. That's really, really important, because I have seen too in this industry where an influencer takes products or takes things and says that, yeah, I will do a video for you. And then they're ghosted, which is horrible, obviously, but it happens. And so that's why you want to have a basic contract in place.
Wow. That would be so unfortunate. Actually, it makes me think too, when you had mentioned before about setting somebody up for success, I was just picturing like someone walking out of a med spa with a bag of skin better. And I was thinking to myself, when you were mentioning setting them up for success and them leaving with it, like making sure that they know what to say about each product, making sure that they have
Yes.
some knowledge around this stuff, because the more that they're invested in this whole project, if you want to call it a project, the more that they're invested in it, the better that that's going to show through in the video. I would think, like, if you really take the time to sit down and go through with them, like, this specific product has this specific ingredient and it's to treat this specific issue, and that's why I prescribed it to you, you know, with air quotes. I think that would make them more likely to be invested and also help you less likely to be taken advantage of, because getting taken advantage of doesn't always happen intentionally. It could happen
Yeah.
unintentionally, right? Like it could just be a whole bunch of flop videos. And so if you can give them the tools to set them up for success by educating them a little bit more on either the skincare items or even like how RF microneedling works and specifically what is happening during the procedure versus just like, you know, some videos like this, you know, while they're
Yes.
while they're doing the procedure. I feel like that would help both parties be less taken advantage of just from like that partnership perspective.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is always
Yeah.
power. And so, you don't need to, send them to school to have the education on everything that they need, but they need to actually like the product or service themselves. So, if I'm just sticking to the skincare theme, if it's a skincare theme that you're doing, they need to love those products. People can sniff that from a mile away. If people are just doing it to do it, you can sniff it from a mile away. So, maybe give them some samples or something to start with so that if you have a few different, moisturizer options and you have some samples, maybe let them go home with a few and try them for a week or so. And then they can pick their favorite one so that they can really speak to it and speak to what it feels like. Like this moisturizer is so luxurious feeling. It's just so lightweight and, it's fragrance free. So it never, aggravates my rosacea, whatever, whatever they want to talk about, but they need to believe in it too.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you give them things that they can speak to and they genuinely love.
Yeah, that's really, really true. The more that I think about that with influencers that have caused me to purchase things, it's because they are truly obsessed with what they
Yeah.
do, what they sell.
Yes.
Okay, so you touched earlier on a little bit around like stats that you can ask someone for just to make sure that it's a legit trade, and you kind of had mentioned that people buy followers, which is, I do want to touch on the buying followers thing because this has also been a recent topic that we've encountered quite a few occasions. So buying followers, people don't always do that intentionally. There's actually a couple ways that you can buy followers without intentionally buying followers through, I'm not going to name them on here, but there's like different apps that pop up for me a lot when I'm in our business account about growing your Instagram organically with real followers that will engage with your stuff. But truthfully, that's still buying followers because you're subscribing monthly to gain followers. So you're still buying them, even though you can do really like transactional things where you spend, $50, get 500 followers. You can do that too. But I just want to say people might not always intentionally believe that they're buying followers. They could be partnered with a business that says, "Oh,
Yes.
we're going to help you with organic social media growth," but then in a matter of 4 days they've gained 4,000 followers, and it's like, when you go and look through those, they look like real accounts, but they're really not. And so, I do just want you to walk us through that a little bit, like what stats you would request to work with somebody, specific screenshots maybe, and then also like what types of investigation could they and should they be doing on their own to make sure that this person is who they say they are online with their followers, and then also is like a good fit for them to likely get a return on this partnership.
I think it's pretty obvious when people have good engagement. I think it is. I think you can do your research and spend 20 minutes on an account and understand if there's good engagement. I would say the best thing to look at is posts with comments and videos with comments. How many people are commenting? Because, yeah, people can like something but how many people are taking the time to comment? Those are really loyal people that are following them, because so often we just do this, right? And maybe someone that you love pops up, and so you give them a little heart and you just keep the scroll going.
Yes.
But for you to really watch the entirety of their video, and to sit there and comment on it, that takes loyal engagement. So look and see how many comments they're getting. See how often they're on stories. And, you know, you can even see on stories, sometimes they'll do little engagement things. Are people engaging with it? You know, you can tell if it says, you know, if they have like a little poll and it says 0 and 100, that probably means only one person probably clicked on it versus like 37%. And, you know, you can just kind of see how someone's engagement is. And so you can look at stories, you can look on posts, and just kind of see for yourself what those metrics are looking like to see how engaged that people are. I wouldn't suggest going through their follower list and spending a bunch of time there, because it doesn't matter if they have good engagement, right? If they have really good engagement, that means they probably have a really good organic following. But if you're talking to the influencer, stats that I would definitely ask for is their engagement rate. I would ask where their top cities are, especially because you're brick and mortar. Again, you want to ask for their top cities. If you're asking someone on TikTok, a really cool feature that TikTok has that Meta doesn't at the current time that we're talking, is you can actually see the videos that they're posting and how long people are averaging watching the video. So you can see if people are immediately dropping off after 2 seconds, or is it kind of a slow decrease? So you might even want to look at things like that. You also need to be careful because you don't want to be too invasive. Like, I've had companies ask for things and I'm like, like, I'm not giving you the password to my stuff for you to go look into all of my stuff. No way. Like, I'm not giving you, you know, so you got to be careful what you ask for, but just a simple, hey, could I get some examples of what your engagement has been like lately with some screenshots? You can see what their stories are like, how many people engage in their stories. There's a lot you can see in analytics, and you can go on Instagram yourself or TikTok yourself and see what engagement tools they have in there. But I would say the ones that are important, focus on engagement. I would even argue engagement is more important than reach, because they can maybe show you like, yeah, I reached 20,000 accounts in the last week, which is incredible. But how many of those engaged? Because you can look at that. If they had 20,000 people that they reached and 5,000 engaged, that would be a high engagement rate. That would be incredible. So those are things that you can look at. There's so much that you would look at. I would just be careful at not trying to be too invasive, but I think you can ask for a couple things, and that's fair.
I do think too that this kind of loops back to our the partnership perspective too, just to make sure that they don't get taken advantage of. I feel like if I were an influencer, which I am not, but if I was and a brand was asking me for these questions, I would feel to a certain degree like, okay, wow, they're the real deal. They know what to ask for. They know what to look for. They have high expectations. And it would almost be like a security blanket for me to feel like I really have to like crank up my quality here and make sure that I'm giving them a great video. What I notice in the conversations that we've had with quite a few different business owners is like, oh, look at this, this person's Instagram or TikTok account. They have so many followers. And it's like, the investigation stops after they see that a person has a lot of followers. So I do appreciate the level of detail that you went into for that, because you could have a lot of followers and it really not mean a lot, or you could have not that many and it mean like a lot, you know? So it's really good to have that additional knowledge. I am curious because you touched on TikTok. If you could just talk a little bit about like what platforms would you suggest that business owners look for Instagram or for like influencers to post content on, and how would they know as a business owner if Instagram or TikTok or, you know, Facebook even is a better fit for them, and like, you know, where should they look for their content to go based on the type of content that they're putting together?
Oh, I feel like we could have a whole nother podcast just on this question, because I have a million thoughts racing through my head. But I would say when it really comes down to it, it depends on what you want to highlight for your business. what is something that you really want to be successful? Is it, or do you live in a college town where you really want to capitalize on lip filler and, you know, a younger crowd of just entering the med spa space and like trying lip filler for the first time? Is that your ideal audience because of your area? Then I would consider TikTok, because there's a lot of that generation on TikTok. There's a lot of camaraderie within college communities, especially. You know, you have a lot of like school pride, you know, and so finding a good influencer that attends a college, you know, close to you, that would be a really good idea if that's what you're wanting to do. However, if you really want to focus on full facial rebalancing with filler, I wouldn't be just picking a 20-something-year-old influencer on TikTok to promote that. I wouldn't. I would look more to Meta, Facebook, and Instagram. And there's just different strategies. And you would even, I would argue, want a different kind of influencer if that's what you want to promote. So what is it in your business that you're really wanting to be successful? Do you just want to be cranking out skincare all the time? There's different strategies. So I'd say number one, look to what's the goal of having an influencer? What service or product or thing do I want to become more popular because of this influencer? And that's what I would really focus on first. Then you can get into strategy and analytics and different things like that I could go on for a really long time about. But, you know, a lot of it depends on, do you want to push ads? Do you want to use their content to be able to put ad spend behind it? If you're doing something like that, I would highly recommend TikTok, because then you can see a lot closer metrics with that kind of stuff. But if you're trying to reach an older demographic, I just truly believe Meta is where it's at. So it just depends on what your business goals are. And I feel like we could have a whole podcast just talking about this, because I could go off on so many tangents, but I won't. But I would say really hone into what is the goal of having this influencer, and then being strategic from that point.
Nice. I think that kind of what you said in a roundabout way is that the business owner should actually be the one that's in charge of what services and what videos and what content is actually going out. Where I feel like the relationships that we've witnessed most recently, it's the opposite. It's this influencer is coming in for this service, and then we're like kind of working backwards in a sense, where it's like really because you're the business owner and you're the one that's, you know, really providing that service, that being able to take the bull by the horns and
Yeah,
say, you
and
know.
of course, the influencer has to agree to it. I will say that.
Yes.
But I would say you can definitely request based off of your research. A lot of people who are on TikTok are also on Instagram. So based on the level of, let's just say you really want to use a particular influencer and they have TikTok and Instagram and they're popular on both. That's when, again, you would want to look at, okay, what's my goals? What is their demographics like, one versus the other, and then go from there. So you could go to them and say, hey, like, I would really love for you to post this on TikTok. Could I trade this for 3 videos? And they're going to negotiate with you what they're comfortable with, of course. But, you know, going into the conversation saying, hey, I noticed that, you know, your TikTok has really high engagement and has a lot to offer. Is there any way that I could trade for this? And they might come back and renegotiate with you. But I do think going into the conversation, knowing what you want, they'll respect you for that. Doesn't mean they'll give you exactly what you want, but I do think they'll respect you because you've done your research and they know like you're a legitimate person to work with too. And they will give you that respect in the content. I think they'll do their best to do a good job because they know that you're watching out for those things.
So based on that, then I only have a couple more questions. I know I'm like really drilling you here. Trying to trip you with all my questions. So what types of content would you say, like if you had to just off the cuff, let's just make up a scenario. So we'll do 2 quick scenarios. So one is a service itself. So let's just say lip filler. Let's just pick it because it's an easy one. If you had an influencer coming in for lip filler, what amount of content would you say is a fair trade for a lip filler?
Oh man. Again, this is just personal based off of the influencer and what they'll agree to. And I think that's something that I feel like I defend both sides really well, because as someone who feels like people have tried to take advantage of me in doing deals with them, it's very hurtful, to be honest, when they're like, we're going to give you this and then we're expecting all of this. And it's like, what? It takes a lot of my time, a lot of my energy, a lot of strategy to come up with something good for you. So, you don't want to be so like, this is what you have to do, or else they're not going to work with you probably. So you got to be kind of careful. But I would say, you really need to negotiate that with the influencer. But I would say trying to have someone who does multiple things for you is always helpful. So let's say that Instagram, like Meta is your goal. I would say a reel would be awesome, stories, maybe a post. So maybe saying like one post, one video, and a story series talking about it. To me, that would be something that would probably be very fair. And then asking them to also repost it on Facebook if they have a Facebook account as well. So it just depends. Like just repurposing it on Facebook along with Instagram takes one click of a button, not hard. So I would say like the more variety you can get, the better. So I would say instead of 2 reels, in my mind, I would rather negotiate with them and say, can I get 1 reel, stories, and a static post or something like that? Because people use these accounts very differently. Some people go on Instagram and only focus on stories. Some people go on Instagram and only go through the reels. So everyone has different user habits. Yeah. People have different user habits. So the more variety that they give you, the better, in my opinion, because they're going to reach more people and different types of users. So I would say I would negotiate trying to get a variety of content versus just like an extra video if you had to choose. But again, I'm trying to be careful with what I say, because every influencer has their own opinions on what is fair and what's not. But to me, that's what I would say. It's just the more variety you can negotiate, the better.
Okay, so you kind of answered like my second scenario. I was going to say if someone were to do skincare, which it kind of sounds similar. Like it's just really based on just trying to capture, the many ways that we can use the platform. You did also touch on my next question, which is funny because we do share the same brain. But from an influencer's perspective, what would you look for in a brand? Like what would make someone the ultimate partner for an influencer?
Okay, I would first and foremost say the product is most important, right? I don't want to put my name on something that I don't love either. Because when I share something with my audience, I want to build that trust with them. I don't want them thinking, oh, here goes Taleesa just talking about a random product.
Yeah.
That's not the vibes. So I'd say I, first and foremost, really want to seek someone who has a good product. And everyone listening here believes in their product and thinks that they have a good product. So I don't think that's an issue that you need to worry about. But I would say, just from personal experience, that's number 1, what I would look for. Number 2 is someone who's fair. I would say there are a lot of brands that ask for things that I feel like are very unrealistic with the time that I have to spend doing something. And then there are some that go like above and beyond. And I'm like, oh gosh, yes. Like, yes, I want to work with you, because I feel like my time is being respected. My expertise is being respected. And the fact that I built this platform and put my so much hard work into it is being respected. So I would say respect is a huge thing. Someone who's coming to me, not just like demanding things, and is more so like, I really respect this. I see that you have a good engagement, complimenting maybe my style. That always helps. I'm not going to lie. Even if it's just to butter me up, I don't care.
Take it.
Say, someone who pinpoints certain things that they like about my content or my style helps, because then I feel like, oh, they actually get who I am. They know who I am. They're being more personable. Like those are people that I really want to work with. So I would say like being kind and respectful goes a really long way, and being fair. You don't need to give away everything. Be realistic for your business, protect your business like we've talked about. But also, do something that's worth their while, that is going to get them excited. Because if they're excited about what they're promoting for you, it's going to translate.
Yeah. So I know that you worked really, really hard at putting together this amazing downloadable free guide that basically goes through everything we just talked about, so that our listeners can download it and take it and run with it. I know I've also heard you mention before that how much is the influencer industry worth right now?
It's billions.
Billions of dollars.
Less. Yes.
So
it's
this
billions
is
of dollars.
booming right now. So definitely a super cool downloadable. I've seen it myself, and you put a lot of time, energy, and effort into that. So you can check our show notes below. And I do just want to say thank you for pouring out all of your info to me. I've heard a lot of it just in other conversations, but it's kind of nice to hear all of it in one place. So I really am excited for our listeners to take this episode and put it into action today. I feel like you gave them a lot of really helpful stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for that and for the guide. And if anyone has questions about the guide, you can find our support email also below in the show notes. And thank you for listening and tuning in.
Thanks, guys.